do you want me? Do you have a copy? Do you have it in front of you?
Yeah, hang on. I'll just try and find it.
Yeah, I got to get it out too. Yeah. All right. So we're just going to read it at the same pace. So, like, hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. Just
are we going to read it together?
Well, I don't know. Should we? Would that sound weird?
Mate, I don't know.
I don't fucking know. I've never tried to talk at the same time on a podcast before. If we're speaking in unison, I'm sure it will be okay.
Is it going to be weird if we go public service announcement?
Well, do it. Do it with a bit of humor. I could do it with a bit of grace and humor.
Together.
Yeah, together. Fuck it. I don't care. If it sounds corny and shit, we're just coming good on a bet, and it'll probably sound quite funny, so fucking go with it.
All right. Do you want me to say public service announcement by myself, and then we can...
Yeah. You say it, so, like, to just do the little intro spiel, like, do the normal g'day and everything, but then jump straight into just coming good on a bet with the Lovelace boys and the weekly rubdown. This is our speech prepared by them because we lost the bet of our Origin series, and then boom, and then we say this is a public service announcement, and then I'll come in with you as soon as you say public service announcement, then it's hello darkness, my old friend, and talk it in that speed.
Okay, I'll try and stick with you.
That's fucked up. Anyway, it could sound horrendous, but whatever.
Okay. Hello, and welcome back to another week of the NRL Supercoach Talk Draft Waiver Wire podcast. Chris and Simon back with you again for another week, and it's the round 19 edition, and geez, the season is starting to really fly by. We've got finals coming up really soon in all leagues. So now's the time to really get stuck in and try and get a hold of those last-minute gems off waivers. Chris, you with me again, mate? How you been?
Still fighting off the man flu, mate, but again, still I'm alive and kicking. As you're about to go into, mate, we're coming good on a bet this week, and not looking forward to what we're about to do, but some things just have to be done.
They do. Let's get into it. This is a public service announcement. Hello, darkness, my old friend.
I've come to talk with you again.
I would just
like to point out to all our listeners how tiny our penises are. We thought we were doing okay, but when we measured ourselves against the Lovelace lads from the weekly rubdown, it was embarrassing how diminutive they made us look and how insignificant they made us feel. Our manhood has been crushed and will never recover. Shame on us for even thinking we could run with those beautiful, bold beasts of Supercoach Draft podcasting pedigree. Firstly, we would like to congratulate the weekly rubdown for their epic display of awesomeness. And secondly, we apologize for wasting your time and assuming we're in the same league as you. Everyone should listen to them. Not only are they handsome, but hilarious to boot. We salute you, Weekly Rubdown, Australia's best draft podcast.
Well, that was about as nice as a kick in the nuts, really.
Mate, that is high-class podcasting there. We come clean. Simon and I debated, does Simon just step up and say it or vice versa, or do we try and do it in unison? I think it sounded more like a cat being murdered, but we've come good on the bet, or at least half of the bet. We will be posting, I'm not sure exactly what social media are on, but we'll have to post a shoey that Simon and I are getting to later this evening as well to come good on the other half of the bet. And really looking forward to getting revenge next year, mate, because I feel like injuries and that took their toll this year, but we did lose, hand up, and half a bet done.
Was that going to be in unison, was it? Because that was fucking terrible.
It was all over the shop. It also, I think we've got a little bit of a delay in the comms, obviously, so it did not sound in unison. But at least we both said it, mate. It's done. Wash the hands of it.
No, look on the bright side. If we lose next year, we'll have no listeners left, so we don't have to worry about that.
That is actually true, mate. We're it's a thin line as it is, but we can't afford to be losing to apparently the handsome but hilarious men from the Rubdown.
Yeah, and well hung, obviously.
Apparently, well hung, and we are certainly, dead right. Dead right.
Fair play. You could call him the George Burgess, the George Burgeye of podcasting.
Well, I see where you're going with that. Yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay, mate, let's rip in. Let's move past that. Let's get into the waivers. And look, it's round 19, so our draft has our finals starting in round 22. So there's only 3 more weeks of competition to go. So now's the time to rip in and try and catch those gems off the wire. Let's start with the first game of the round on Thursday, which is Parramatta at home to the Bulldogs. Now, I guess we sort of made a bit of a mistake last week. We didn't talk much about this Marata Niokore. It's the reason why I'm sort of glossed over him is because I didn't realise that he was CTW only. I just assumed he was a 2RF, and gone on and played 74 and 75 minutes each of the last 2 weeks. So, what's that sort of make you think about him rest of season?
I really think, mate, the answer to that lies in how long Manu Ma'u was out. So I was of the opinion Ma'u wasn't gone for season, but I'm just doing a bit of research now. Do you know how long he's due?
I think he's out for the year.
He's actually out for the year. Okay.
Yeah, he's gone.
Well, in that case, mate, I guess you just go on evidence of the last 2 weeks and Niokore playing 80 minutes. I imagine then he's a waiver claim.
Yeah, look, I think what really scared us off last week is just that bench. Four forwards on the bench. It was really hard to see 80 minutes coming there with Nathan Brown also in the side, and Alvaro, he commands pretty big minutes as well. So that was pretty tough. But look, if you've picked him up or if he is still out there on waivers, definitely worth a start in CTW if you do like that base stat type of player. Probably not really your cup of tea though.
No, not my style. But I mean, look, having one of those type guys is never the worst option, especially with how bad CTW's been this year. So 74 and 75 minutes with over 50 base in both the last 2 weeks. I again, as a fourth CTW there that will, at least looks like you'll get your 45 plus. There are worse options out there.
Yeah. Okay. Also, Jared Hayne. Look, he played really, really good on the weekend. He actually turned back the clock. If he actually had some speed left, he would be absolutely killing it. He just was just a little bit too slow to really take full advantage of the gaps that he was creating. But you can just tell the class is still there with a guy like Hayne, can't you?
Has he just shed a couple of kegs in the last month? I looked at him really closely on the weekend. He just looks a little bit fitter to me, which with that transition, to the NFL and back, has he finally now just started to click into NRL gear? I think he maybe is. You
reckon? Or do you think it's just the fact that he's playing for a contract now? Because I sort of think that's what it is.
Look, and mate, you're probably right. We can't get into the head of Jared Hayne and obviously his management team, but yes, it very well could be, but all we care about is what that means for fantasy. And I think if people aren't believing still, we did talk about last week, it feels like this could be a real resurgence.
Especially if he's up against Kerrod Holland this week. Could be.
What a matchup.
Yeah. I'd waiver for Hayne, I think.
Yeah. Well, I said last week low-end waiver was acceptable. I think you're happy with the upgrade now to if he's out there, go get him?
Yeah. I'd be happy spending any claim on him to get him now.
How high up would you potentially rank him in the CT dubs?
In terms of rest of season?
Yes.
No better than a CTW 3. Probably.
Yeah, I was going to say CTW 3 with a little bit, maybe a little wiggle room to go up, but maybe, but every week starter I think is fair enough.
Yeah, without doing the rankings, I'd say he's probably around that 25 to 30 range in CTW.
That's the thing, mate. It only takes a bit of a multi-week surge in terms of scores to push someone up that CTW ladder for the year because, averages have been so poor.
Geez, it's been poor. And then obviously we're going to get to the Croker injury, but he's gone, which is massive news, obviously. And
shakes up those rankings for sure.
Yeah, it's really pretty easy. Probably the easiest year to date to be a top 20 CTW.
Yeah, and then Rapana has one good week, which launches him back into the conversation. It's just it's a week-to-week issue, the CTW.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to the Bulldogs. And really, the conversation starts and begins with Will Hopewadi, really.
Oh, how good did he play? That basketball-looking offload thing he did on the right wing, that's a special rugby league moment for mine, to do that with that precision.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. I didn't realize just how many offloads he had until the game was finished. And I sort of checked the stats. He had 10 effective offloads.
How good is his motor? I swear to God, every time you looked around, he was running the ball back to the line, and not once was he just surrendering in a tackle. Like he was looking for an offload, or he was trying to find a gap or tackle busting like that. That's as good a performance in a really average side. Like that is a very poor Bulldogs side. Well played. Good on him. Love to watch that.
I do think that he would be out on a few waivers. And if he is, you'd just fire him up against Parramatta. No questions asked.
Oh, yeah. Oh, great. You'd think the matchup, if he's in that sort of mood again, you think it wouldn't really matter what team he was playing, but in terms of hitting some attacking stats, you think he's a red-hot chance there.
Yeah, that's true. Also for the Bulldogs, there's not really many more waivers per se, but I guess we just wanted to talk about Aiden Tolman's value rest of season.
Mm.
Now, you and I had a bit of a tug-of-war battle a couple of weeks back to try and pick him up off free agents when Woods got the flick on to the Sharks. And ever since then, he's seen pretty big minutes. So I guess I'll ask you, as the non-owner of Tolman, how you sort of rate him rest of season?
Well, you got to love those minutes. I mean, 61, 64, and 56 minutes. 55 minutes plus for Tolman is at least going to get you a 50 average. So considering how bad front rowers have been this year, I mean, he's automatically a starter, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. You just got to know what you're getting. He's just a very low upside player, but he'll just get you those base stats, which is just what you want in a high minute prop.
Just a rock solid number 2 FRF in 10-team leagues, and he's not a guy you'd bust the bank to go and acquire, but if you are struggling in the front row, you might be able to like prize him away from the owner like quite cheaply if you've got something that like an extra CTW on the bench or an extra halfback or whatever. He's a decent trade target for that reason, I believe.
Yeah, I also agree. Okay, let's go on to the Sharks. Now, for Cronulla, you see Kurt Capewell. He's been omitted from the side due to an injury, which sees Scott Sorensen take over what was Luke Lewis's spot before that. And he played 80 minutes on the weekend, Sorensen, with a score of 67. Did lose a lot of points in updates, but down dates. I believe he was on mid-80s for most of the week and then lost a whole heap. But the fact that he's playing 80 minutes is still pretty positive for him, and it should be a pretty good matchup against Canberra. So would you really waste a waiver on Sorensen, knowing that Luke Lewis has probably still a couple more weeks left before he comes back, or would you settle for a free agency only?
It's a really tough one to answer, mate, because obviously Luke Lewis in the twilight of his career, I mean, you can't see Lewis coming in and sort of taking over. Bakuya is rotating through the front row, I believe, at the moment with Woods. Is that correct?
Bakuya is going through the front row, yes. I believe so.
Yeah, so with Sorensen and Graham locked into those 80-minute roles as this side is, and Gallen being rested for Paulo, when Lewis comes back, because he doesn't rotate through the front row, nor does Sorensen, it makes me think that maybe Sorensen is just time limited only.
Yeah.
I just don't. It feels like if Lewis is there, he'll either go to the bench or he'll start but get spelled. I'm not on board with a waiver claim for Sorensen personally.
He's one of those guys that if you're the owner of a Jaden Sewer or a Chris Lawrence or somebody like that who has, or even a Lachlan Fitzgibbon who we'll get to has been dropped to the reserves. I know that Fitzgibbon's been suspended for 2 weeks prior to this, but if you've been really banking on him coming straight back and slotting into your second row this week, I think Sorensen, you could probably justify a low-end waiver, probably set in the 7, 8, 9 range, just because there's a chance there he has got 2 to maybe 3 week potential, and you might be able to cut.
If you need the wins now, that's a good point. I could justify it if you need the wins now, but he's not a guy I would bank on to being a starter for you in your finals series.
No, his role will probably have evaporated by then, I'd say.
His edge back row partner there, though, I was fortunate enough to pick him up just the week gone, just because he's back to the 80-minute role after his injury. And I know Wade Graham. So you've said he's got that in-game injury risk now that is got to be taken into account. But whilst he's getting 80 minutes in a pretty competitive Sharks side, I think he's a fair enough third 2RF starter, Wade Graham. I don't mind him at all. And I think he's worth a low-end claim if you are struggling. So if you lost Jaden Sewer or any of those types this week, I definitely think he's someone worth picking up and potentially having for the rest of the year.
You can keep that, mate. You know my thoughts on Wade Graham after last week. I just think he's too. The minute he goes down with another injury, you can't complain.
No, you can't. But I think compared to other options that are out there at the moment, he gives you a decent shot at a guy who can get you a 55 average if he does go on a bit of a run and stay fit. So I'd rather take a gamble on putting a claim in for Graham than I would Sorensen.
I guess that job security is something. Okay, let's go onto the Raiders now. Pretty massive news, obviously, with Croker requiring surgery and is out for the season. Really brutal. I know he hasn't been the Jared Croker that you probably come to know, but he's still been pretty damn good. And
it hurts this Raiders side. It hurts Nick Kotrich because obviously he doesn't have, Croker on the inside of him. I mean, Michael Oldfield as a centre, that doesn't look right to me.
No, it doesn't. And it really screams just load up on Jesse Ramian this week for a try.
Mate, I'm going further. I noticed Brad Abbey's back at fullback. I think Nick Kotrich is a sell high going into the finals with Croker gone.
Wow, that's big.
I'd be going for something else.
I'll tell you what is interesting is that Aiden Caesar has been ruled out also with a hamstring injury.
Oh, okay.
And Brad Abbey will probably take over the kicking with that news, which is pretty unlucky for Canberra. They've got two of the best kickers in the comp.
Yeah.
Other than Penrith, obviously, but Caesar's one of the top backups.
Yeah, he's gone.
They lose them both in the same.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. And yeah. I just wanted to clarify when I said Aiden Caesar's a gun, I wanted to add the goal kicking part of the end there. Just make sure that was.
He's a gun, goal kicker.
No, regular listeners will know, but just in case anyone's listening for the first time, not saying Aiden Caesar is a gun overall. But yeah, mate, that is very unlucky. So the halfback, who is it? Sam Williams comes in. Sam Williams is there in the 6. So will Austin just come into 6 and Williams to 7?
That seems the most logical replacement, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty likely to happen there.
It's amazing. Like, you take Croker out of that side all of a sudden, and it loses its luster because it reshuffles that back line so much.
Yeah, it really does. It doesn't appear to be a good week for the Raiders away at the Sharks, but
Leopana surely is the go-to again. Sorry, with that team we're looking at. Maybe this is Rapana's time to return to CTW stardom.
Yeah, well, if you're lucky enough to pick him up off waivers last week, I'm sure you'd love to see that. He is a gun. Okay, let's move off the Raiders then. There's probably not too much else there for a waivers perspective. onto the Broncos and Panthers. Now, for the Broncos, we said that Jaden Sewer's out probably for the season with his
he's gone.
Injury.
He's gone.
And that sees TPJ take over second row. So, look, there's unless Tavita Pangai is somehow being dropped, which is possible. He hasn't been setting the world on fire recently. But unless he's out there, there's not really too much for the Broncos for waivers. But I guess what we'll just talk about for them is really try and focus in on their forward rotation. How do you see that going with Lodge, Thaiday, Glenn, Pangai Jr. and Maguire? Obviously, you've got Offahengawi, Sims and Patrick Margot on the bench. Lots of good forwards. You've got Gillett coming back in a couple of weeks. Around 22, I think, is his sort of aim. So, yeah, what do you sort of make of the Broncos?
Well, 45 to 50 for Lodge. Thaiday, 35 to 40. I think Glenn's been, of all the roles that have now been secured, like with Sewer and Gillett going down, Alex Glenn's got an 80-minute role there for sure. It has to happen because surely out of Pangai and Glenn, Pangai's the one that gets rested, right?
You'd think so. Glenn seems to be the 80-minute man. Pangai Jr.'s obviously he's an absolute gun, but big minutes is probably not his real go. I think out of Maguire, Glenn, and him, he'll be the one that misses out. He'll still get good minutes, but probably not. 80 shouldn't be your expectation. More like your 55 to 60.
You might just see a bit of a boost to Maguire's minutes as well, I think, with this rotation. He might just sneak his way up to like that 60 mark a bit more consistently. So don't mind. Maguire's he's been quiet this year. I think it might be a little sneaky Barlow opportunity on Maguire just for the run home.
Yep. I do like it as a potential 80-minute front row forward playing lock in real life. You'd be all about that.
Yeah, I think he's a realistic shot at like 65 minutes there.
Well, if my memory serves me correctly, I'll just look him up now, but I do feel as though he did play 80 minutes either the first or second week back from returning from injury.
Just having a look now too.
Yeah, he played 80 minutes in round 16
and
scored 70 points, which is pretty impressive, 64 in base. So, yeah.
Curiously, like, he only played 51 minutes on the weekend. That's interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting.
He's a bit all over the shop, but he's definitely got, now that Origin's in the rearview mirror, I mean, that could have just been post-Origin. I think, as I said, I'll go with the buy low, little buy low on Maguire.
Yeah, that's a really good point, the Origin, because I was sitting there thinking, geez, that is actually really concerning because it wouldn't have made any sense otherwise. But yeah, obviously the Origin backing up, that's the reason.
And again, when you see that Pangai Jr. is the one coming into the back row, again, I'd be shocked if he plays 80 minutes. That can only be good for Maguire, so I like it.
Sounds good. Okay, on to the Penny Panthers. So DWZ's back at fullback. I don't mind DWZ from Supercoach point of view. He's busy enough.
I'm not a fan, mate. Not a fan. I don't. We were talking pre-podcast about this. I don't think he moves very well laterally. I'm not saying you have to be an RTS to be a gun fullback, but I just don't think he's good enough at beating a man from the fullback position. I think he just runs very straight. He's fast in a straight line and he can finish. So I think he's really a winger. And I'm not a huge fan for Supercoach purposes seeing him at fullback.
Interesting. Yeah, he's rapid, DWZ. Like I think that's
in a straight line. He is.
Yeah, like I think that's his go. Just burn people.
Yeah, but I'm not on board. I don't think he's a waiver claim. But the next guy, sign me right up.
Sauce. You're all about the Samoan Sauce, Christian Crichton?
Definitely not.
Oh no. I misread that situation. Sorry, Josh Mansour. Right, you're right. He's the one you want.
Very good, mate. That's good podcasting. You got our listeners to believe that you were talking about someone else, but in fact, you brought it back to the source. Well done. Well bloody done.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for that.
Josh Mansour, mate. He's a beast. I love watching him play. Obviously, in-game injury risk is through the roof with that guy, considering previous, experience or recent history. but you waiver claim this guy, you whack him into your CTW as no worse than a second CT dub, and playing in a good Panthers side, the try should be there.
Yeah, if he's out there, we mentioned him last week as a pickup, but if he is out there, he is your number one pickup this week. He's it.
Easy, mate. Easy done. Even if you've already got an established CTW set, he's going to be trade bait easily. So go and get him if you got the number one claim this week.
That's the way to go. Now, also with Penrith, we've gone through number one, number two, but also the number three, Wonga Blake. Now, he has kept the centre spot over Tyrone Peachey, which is pretty massive news to have a New South Wales rep relegated to the bench. I know that's Peachey's sort of niche, but he was playing pretty well at centre, so to see Wonga Blake come back and take his spot, it's pretty big.
Yeah, I'll wait and see game day, mate, on this one, because given the option to start Christian Crichton or Tyrone Peachey, I don't really even see how that's a debate, personally. So we'll see whether Wonga doesn't move to the wing on game day. I'm not a big Wonga Blake fan. I'll leave room to be, to turn on him and embrace him as a Supercoach player, but I still feel he's got that very low score, the floor in him that I'm not a fan of. So in a good Panthers side, though, I can see why. I'll concede he's probably a 4 CTW at the moment, but he's not a guy I'd be racing to get personally.
Yeah. I'm very much the same. I understand that at some point you and I will probably have to eat some humble pie on Wonga Blake, because he's sort of one of those players that has burnt people in the past, because he was a really highly touted youngster. And he come in first grade and he didn't actually live up to that sort of promise. He was a bit overweight, didn't really put in, got dropped, and just never really lived up to what his billing was. Went away, lost the weight. His speed has improved amazing. He's one of the fastest guys in the comp now. And because of that, I feel like there's this stigma about Wonga Blake, and clearly you and I have got bitten by that stigma. But I just feel like he might be one of those players we have to come back and bite ourselves for. But I'm still, even though I say that, I'm still very much like you. I wouldn't be picking him up with a waiver claim, but I get a sense that we might regret this. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, we probably shouldn't be strong to say, no, don't waiver him. Sure, I can see, again, if you're needy at the CTW position, he's a 4th CT dub. That's fine. He's got a bit of upside. And, again, he meets the criteria. He's playing in a very good side this year who will score points. So I'm not going to say don't waiver him. You can waiver him if you like. He's just not one that I would be I wouldn't be busting out to get a trade through for him or spending a number one claim on him. That's my take.
Yeah, fair call. Okay, on to the first game of Super Saturday. Newcastle at home to the Gold Coast. I don't think there's anything to talk about in this whole game for waivers.
Hey, Josh King's still there.
Josh King, your favourite.
How is he playing first grade this week? I was reading some of the Knights fan pages, and people are confused, to say the least. You would think if you put in a display like that, you probably should have a stint in reserve grade. But, the coach obviously sees something in him, and good luck to him. But
sorry,
sorry, mate.
I was just about to say, I think you need to go and get a psychology assessment. What are you doing on Newcastle Knights forum pages? That is just got to be the most dire of places to be. That can't be good for your health.
It is, mate. They're a wonderful community, the Knights community. Newcastle, they stick by their own, mate. And I'm saying Josh King can turn it around. You heard it first. Supercoach 100 coming up this week. No, I can't do that. I'm sorry. There's nothing dire about it. We stick together, mate. We're allowed to question our coach on occasion, but we still believe in the end plan. So it's not a great side for Supercoach purposes, though, is it? Like I am looking at it over now. Connor Watson's a shining light. Pearce looked good in his first game back and coincided with a win over a team I'm so glad we took down the Eels. Those two stand out for mine. Lachlan Fitzgibbon, mate, that fantasy value has just bottomed out something fierce.
I feel really sorry for Fitzgibbon owners. I really do.
I do too. He's such a good player.
He's been suspended for 2 weeks and lost his spot. I don't understand.
Well, I don't understand the need to play Essie as a lock and not just, put him back in the front row and, obviously bring Fitzgibbon onto an edge and Barnett back to 13. That's so obvious. So maybe game day, mate, that changes. Could do.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say would be slightly different is I think Guerra would be the one to go to 13 with Fitzgibbon.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a better fit. My apologies, but that you'd think is a better looking side on paper, but yeah, it's some backline there, by the way. Meany, Co, Dennis, Kenny Dowell, Nathan Ross. I think that comfortably takes the gong for the worst backline this week.
Yes, I mean, I'll exclude Nick Meany because I actually think he could be quite a good real life player. A real life player. What do you think this is? It'll be good for fantasy too. I'll mark it down when he goes to the Bulldogs. It's just obviously being a rookie. He's just not at a point in his career yet where you can.
Not trying to write off Nick Meany. More that inexperience combined with guys that have been experienced but haven't shown much, especially in recent times. But it's not too flash. So
it's brutal, isn't it?
But yeah, onto the Titans, mate. And speaking of not so flash, Conrad Hurrell is having an absolute mare of a season, both in real life and Supercoach. I tried to drum up some sort of hope that he'd get things rolling, but he does. It's just not happening, is it?
No, he's done.
Is this the week, though? Against that back line, surely he has some attacking opportunities this week.
The ball doesn't get out to him enough. Like,
no.
Brimson, for as good as he's looked, I do think he's a good up-and-coming player. He hasn't got the vision yet to get the ball out there. He's a runner, a ball runner.
Yeah.
And it's really not good for Connie on the left-hand edge. And you probably realise this a little bit being a Branko owner. See, Branko mines all his fantasy value from getting out of his own end and trying to create from afar. As soon as it gets down within the 10, Ash Taylor just hits Proctor on a short line all the time. It barely gets to Branko inside the red zone.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of variation in their attack, do they? And it's having a guy like Ash Taylor there who has the skills, I believe. Is this a coach directive to play that way? Because there's no way Ash Taylor is not a good enough player to spin the ball early out to his centers, especially two strike centers like Conrad and Brenko. So it must be coming from the coaching staff.
Possibly. Maybe they're just trying to be too structured with Proctor short off the hip and Gordon on the sweep out the back. Who knows? But
give both of those men the ball. Give them a chance. Like, they're damaging ball runners. So I don't know, mate. Like, based on your analysis just then, there is room for Conrad to turn it around this year. Like, it's not necessarily him playing poorly. I'm sure it is that a bit, but if suddenly Titans go, all right, we've identified this, let's give him a chance. I think Conrad, I'm just going to stick with it, mate. He's still an okay guy to have stashed away. Because if lightning starts, if the lightning strikes, he could turn it on any time.
Yeah. All right. Let's go on to the next game, which is the Tigers at home to South Sydney. Now, for the Tigers, we'll start with. They lost Josh Reynolds, which is a huge blow for Supercoach. Yeah, no.
How good's that for Robbie Farah?
Yeah, no. Look, fair play to Robbie Farah owners. How good has Farah been? So good.
Well, Josh Reynolds being gone for the season now is huge. That's 80 minutes locked in rest of season, I would think.
Yeah. If you picked up Farah, then you got to be loving it. It's just that I guess like Jacob Little is back on the extended bench.
I did see that,
but look, Farah's been just going. The Tigers have been looking so much better with Farah playing 80 in the middle there.
Well, mate, I tipped him to beat the Dragons last week, not because I thought that it was just because the Dragons coming off Origin and all their forwards were tired. Just remember he said on paper that is like a pretty good looking side.
Yeah, it is.
And Rabbitohs have been rolling, but I mean, again, I think the Tigers are a show here. So However, I probably reckon in terms of Supercoach, this might be a low-scoring game, I feel. Very tight affair.
Yeah, a bit of a defensive battle, which is not... South Sydney, they're an attacking juggernaut. They haven't really been put in much of a grind too much. They sort of just blow teams away. But yeah, this has the makings, given the fact that it's a Tigers home game, albeit at ANZ. I think it could be pretty close. Yeah, it could be good. Now,
Chicam, our man Chicam,
Mikel Chicam. I'm all about the Chicam.
I don't know why we pronounce his name like that. I think we just like saying Chicam. It's a very brilliant name. Chicam will probably get 80 minutes, mate, with Lawrence out for the foreseeable future with a hamstring injury. So back on the waiver list. I think it's fair enough.
Yes, yeah, I think he's way up on the waiver list because he is CTW eligible. 2RF.
Yes, and looking at the bench, his minutes, I can't see how he doesn't. He'd be very unlucky if he doesn't play 80 with that bench.
Yes, because obviously Packer and Madalino are the front row, and Josh Alawai is his second row partner, who is not an 80-minute second rower. So,
correct.
He's named in the Chris Lawrence role, which has been 80 minutes all season. So,
and for as long as I can remember, so Chicam, get on board, and just happy to be saying Chicam again.
Yes, whenever he does something, just get up and about.
The myth. We got to make sure, and remember, when you say Chicam, you got to say myth. It's important.
The myth Chicam. No, I'm just having a squiz here. His average in minutes in games he's played 70+ minutes is 58.8.
Sounds about right, mate. He's busy. He's a very busy player.
So get right around him as a waiver. On to South Sydney now. I guess Campbell Graham is the name that you wanted to bring up here as a mention. What's your take on him?
When I've watched him, I mean, I picked him up in the buy round recently, and he did well for me. He got me 60 odd. I had a good look at his stats just before we went on air here, and he's base statting about 30 a game, and not quite 30, but somewhere between 25 and 30 points, which, again, I know it doesn't sound that exciting, but it's enough to at least get him you thinking about starting him. He's obviously playing in a really good attacking Rabbitohs side this year, and we've seen all the ball and all the set plays go to Robert Jennings. Yes, that will likely continue, and Robert Jennings is a great start going forward, but Campbell Graham will still be getting his tries. I think he's a very acceptable fourth CTW right now.
Yeah, just for that upside and attacking side, I think he's probably worth it.
Yeah, combined with the fact that he's going to hopefully get your floor of around about 30. I mean, that's for a CT dub in the current landscape, that's someone worth looking at, in my opinion. So you won't have to waiver him. I'd be very surprised if you did in 10-team leagues. But free agent pickup, start him as your fourth. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right, on to the 7:30 game on Super Saturday. Up at 1,300 Smiles, you got Cowboys at home to the Dragons. Now, in breaking news for fantasy, Justin O'Neill has got a recall.
Glad I'm sitting down.
He will partner Kane Lynette on the left-hand side of the field in an explosive backline combination.
Explosive is all right. Explosive diarrhea.
Oh, he went there. I
did, mate. You handballed it to me. I can assure you that was off the cuff, listeners. That was just natural stuff. Justin O'Neill. All right, good stuff, Cowboys.
Yeah, let's not talk about the Cows. How this team is not being shaken up more than it really is a blight on Paul Green. He's a good coach. Like, I've always perceived him to be a very good coach, but I'm starting to really question it now when I see stuff like this.
Have they got no youngsters that are coming through that can push a Kane Lynette or a O'Neill out of the side? There's got to be.
Yeah.
Just quickly mention, though, for those who've struggled in the halfback slot, Tamari Martin looked really good on the weekend. I love how he was running the ball to the line, and he looked quite dangerous and put together another pretty good score. If you're one of those guys who've struggled to fill halfback, he's definitely in that conversation as the low-end starter. So I would go out and get him if I was in needy at halfback for sure.
Sounds good. Okay, on to the Dragons, mate. Now, there's not any change with their side. They're actually unchanged. Nene McDonald has been named, though, and
no way he plays. No way. Not going to have. I don't understand why he's named. We've had this all year, mate, with these players getting named that are going to, that aren't going to get up. Kurt Mann, good start this week.
Yeah, because he will be. I know he'll be playing on the left-hand side if he does take Nene's spot, won't he? So he'll be up against Cole Felt, not O'Neill.
Still be tries. There's tries to be had in this game. I expect the Dragons to bounce back, as they've pretty much done all year after a loss, and probably put on some points here.
Yep, I agree. Okay, next game of the round, you've got the Warriors at home to Melbourne. For the Warriors, Jared Beale takes Hiku's spot as he's been pushed back to the bench, which is pretty crap for the Hiku owners, but he does deserve it. In terms of waivers, there's nothing really for the Warriors. For the Storm, mate.
Just quickly, mate, shout out to my boy Solomone Kata with a really nice return to form with a 90-odd. Thank you very much, friend, for a very good week and getting me over the line.
There you go. I hope you got up and about it and yelled out Solomone Kata.
As you would. I like it almost as much as saying Chikan.
No, it's completely different. The inflection you got to put on your voice is just completely different. Solomone is a screamer.
Yes.
Solomone Kata, whereas Chikam's just a nice little, like a reggae, just Chikam. Yeah, it's just.
Thanks for that. Need that clarification, mate. Cheers.
You're welcome. Okay, let's go to the Storm. Your boy, Brodie Croft, you picked him up last week and started him. What a masterstroke, because he's kept the spot.
That was the logic you and I went with when he got dropped earlier in the year, that he go send him back to reserve grade, make him realize just how precious that first grade spot is and shore up his defense. Still doesn't have the best reads of defense, I don't think, but in attack stud, he's looked pretty good. So I've got him again in that Tamari Martin range. I actually have both of them at the moment for the run home with my horrible run with halfbacks this year, which I don't want to talk about. So Brodie Croft, I think, is quite a viable start while he's in there. And I like him this week against the Warriors. I'm all about starting him.
Yeah, I really think that is such a great pickup on your part last week. When I saw you do it, I just sort of thought, geez, that's risky because you were running with Tamari Martin and Nikorima, and when you went and cut him from your side and was relying on Croft to get named this week, I mean, it was a real risk reward play because if Croft was not named, you'd be running with Tamari Martin rest of season. Mm-hmm. And I think you deserve props for making that move, and obviously you reap the rewards. Hopefully he can keep it for you.
Yeah, I think it's a viable strategy for those who don't have. I mean, there's not many good halfbacks anyway. I would have both of those over a Mitch Moses, for example, just because of how bad Moses has been in that Eels side. I think you're probably better off going for a bit one of these upstarts with a bit of upside. And again, with such a bad halfback landscape, including JT and DC's been okay. Ben Hunt's been kind of quiet as well. If you just want to get by and also have a chance of a bit upside, I think one of Croft or Tamari, they're pretty good options that might be out there for you.
Yeah. Also, just before we move off the Storm, I'll just sort of give mention to pretty much any of the Storm backs. Just Vunivalu, Chambers, and Curtis Scott. They've all been really disappointing for fantasy, but I could see tries against the Warriors this week, so they're probably not bad free agent pickups only, and starts just for this week.
Yeah.
Just also, we've just sort of touched on Brodie Croft, but it's pretty bad news for Jerome Hughes owners as well because he's out of the side now.
What about the Riley Jackson owners, mate, who got 100 from him in the bye week?
Unbelievable. And he is gone completely, isn't he? He's out of it.
Completely gone. Well, we were always pretty sure he wasn't an NRL player long term. So I think they've got the heir apparent is back and he's here to stay in Brodie Croft.
Yeah. Okay.
Until until he misreads the defense, an attacking line like 3 times in a game again and gets dropped. But until he does that, he's your boy.
Yeah, it's not a long leash he's on, but right while you can. Last game of the round is Manly at home to the Sydney Roosters. 2 guys for Manly we wanted to talk about here, and that is Manasi Fainu and Sean Lane. Both guys have come off massive scores last week. Sean Lane got 2 tries in a score of 100, and Fainu scored 93, I believe. I'm not too sure about his minutes. Did he go 60 plus?
So Fainu played 64 minutes in his first game in week 16, and then he played nearly the full 80, so 77 minutes with a 51 base. And that was against Melbourne as well. I tell you what, mate, he's right on the edge now of pushing some of those underperforming hookers, thinking your Jake Friends and the like, as someone that you probably could consider starting over that level. I think there's a bit of upside there, and I think at the very least a bench stash that could end up being your starter.
Yeah, no, he's a sneaky one because I was also reading that Lewis Brown is injured, so they got the exemption that they were looking for. So he should have no worry staying in that side now, which is good news for potential owners of him. Now, Sean Lane is a really interesting one, and I don't really know what advice to give on him here because I can't get a read on this.
We bring him up all the bloody time. Sorry to interrupt you. We bring him up all the time. What do you think? What are we doing here?
Well, it's just unusual. Like we've sort of said, look, when he's in the number 12 jersey this year, he has broken the pattern of that position being an 80-minute role. When it was Sirinen, and then when it was Frank Winterstein the year before, and a little bit this year. He was the man that was as soon as he would get named there, all of a sudden it wouldn't be an 80-minute position anymore, and it lost it. But then in the last 2 weeks, for God knows what reason, he's gone back-to-back 80-minute games. And that's with Joel Thompson and Jake Trbojevic getting 80 minutes. I just don't see how there can be enough minutes to go around for your lock forward and both your second row forwards to get 80 minutes while you've still got a 60-minute front rower in Marty Tapau there. And also a 65-plus or 70-plus minute hooker. It's just it's unheard of.
I'll tell you, mate, the answer to that conundrum is Frankenstein is your bench second rower who played 0 minutes last week. So that would explain that part. But surely that doesn't continue. So as much as you want to get on board with this, because just going back even round 14, he played 71 minutes as well. So that's also quite high. And again, Sean Lane with high minutes is a player you want to start. So can he still get 65 plus, even if maybe Frankenstein just spells him for 15 minutes? I still think he's potentially a low-end starter there.
Yeah. I can come around on it. Like I would really love to believe that is what he is, that big minute player. I just don't. I wouldn't like it, obviously, if you go in on him now and he just go back to what he has been the last 5 to 6 rounds prior to this.
Question is, so you got with those 80 minutes, he looks like he base stats around about somewhere between sort of, we'll go 37 and 45.
Right.
Just looking at his stats, seems about what he does, which is pretty standard for an edge back rower. That's about the norm. He is a very dangerous attacking player with 2 tries on the weekend. Obviously not going to happen every week. Do you take a punt and spend your waiver claim on the chance he is an 80-minute player? That's really the question you're asking.
Yeah, I think you're just going for the upside, don't you? As we said at the start of the show, at this point in the year, you haven't got enough weeks left in the season to be sitting on waivers waiting for this no-brainer player to come up on waivers. You've got to take punts on guys, and I think you just have to based on that alone.
And you got to also take the carrot is dangled as well, because after the Manly get through this very tricky part of their draw, so they've gone St George, Penrith, bye, Melbourne, Sydney, Penrith, Sharks. Brutal run. Absolutely brutal. However, when you get to the finals, which for our league certainly is, and I know a lot of leagues are as well, Bulldogs, Gold Coast, Tigers, Broncos on the run home. The draw softens up quite a lot.
So that's Gold Coast in round 24?
Round 23. So Bulldogs round 21, Gold Coast 22, Tigers is at Campbelltown, but I mean, yes, Tigers are pretty good, but not as good as they were defensively. And then a game at Suncorp, which is usually good for attacking footy as well. So I'm going to say yes to Sean Lane, especially if you've just lost like a Jaden Sewer this week. I could see that being a waiver claim.
Yeah, that sounds all right. Okay, that's pretty much it for Manly. That's pretty good analysis there. Last thing to touch on is Sydney Roosters. Now, their forward rotation is never really settled. It's hard to get a read on, but look, with this rotation of bench players they have at the moment, I don't see, apart from Tedavano, I don't see a second front row forward on the bench. Madison on the bench in 14. Obviously, Tedavano I mentioned. You've got Mitchell Orbison, who's been a back row his whole career, and Kurt Baptiste, who's a hooker. So I guess the question I have for you is, who is going to play front row and spell Taukeiaho or JWH, and how are these minutes going to get divvied around?
Very confusing having two back rowers on the bench, mate. I don't understand that at all. So if I was to take my best stab, and in terms of who I think is someone you should be looking at, Taukeiaho is in line for big minutes here in this current role.
Because he played 62 minutes last week, didn't he?
Yeah, and 57 the week before. I think he's got 55 plus locked in with this side, which means he's only 2RF eligible, but you certainly, I've got him as a third 2RF with those stats. And he's been busy with those minutes as well. Is Cordner being eased back in? Is this why he's only, that you got Madison and Orbison on the bench, or is he back to 80? Radley will get spelled by one of them, and then obviously Liu plays limited minutes. So I just don't know how they work in the front row rotation. I don't know who, because unless Isaac Liu comes back on as a front rower, I don't really see who's spelling who.
Yeah, that'll be the rotation if I was to guess. I think that Madison I assume Madison would come on for Liu at about the 25 to 30 minute mark. Mm-hmm. And then obviously Tedavano would spell JWH or JWH, I assume would be first off.
Yep.
And then, Liu would probably come back on at some stage for Taukeiaho.
Before half time?
Possibly. Oh, geez, that's where it's hard, isn't it? Far out.
That's not Liu. Liu's never been a high minute guy, as you know. So I just.
Oh, but he has been this year, though. He hasn't been in years past, but he's had some 80-minute games this year.
Okay.
Actually, to tell you the truth, he's had 80-minute games in the last six rounds.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. I knew he played 80, but I didn't know it was holy crap.
Yeah. Well, I'll put my hand up there and say I've missed the boat on that one. But Madison, I mean, is it possible Madison rotates through the front row?
It might well be. I mean, he's much more likely to than Orbison or Baptiste. So
Orbison, there's no way Orbison doesn't rotate through the front row. That can't be a thing. So it's got to be Madison, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's either going through front row or lock, and I mean, what's the difference really in this day and age? I mean, your lock's a bit more agile, but it's basically the same position these days.
Pretty much, especially now that all these front rowers try and pass before the line. Thank you, James Graham and Des Hasler. So yeah, it's an odd one, mate. And as I said, my bottom line is that you could take a punt on Jared as like a bench stash, which I'm currently doing, in case the minutes shake out that he pushes closer to 50. But the one I'm most confident with is definitely Taukeiaho. I think his value is pretty high right now.
I'd love to agree. I would really love to agree with you. It's just that there's been so many times where I've been like you and all in on Taukeiaho, thinking he's going to get 55 minutes and just base that, 50 to 55 because he is that one PPM player.
Yeah,
I really hope for your sake that that is going to come true. But I've been burned a few times with believing in Taukeiaho, thinking he's going to get these minutes, and it's just never happened. I think you need to be a bit careful of the fact that Cordner wasn't there last week and hasn't.
Cordner does. Yeah, good call. That's the cautionary tale there. Cordner does. He's the star in that back line. He commands the minutes. Just to also mention there to the Madison owners, what would you do, mate? Because it looks like 80 minutes, which is what I suspected is not going to happen. Not whilst those current players are there. So what do you do? Do you start him in the CTW? Do you trade him on the cheap and try and sell someone that he's just working his way back to fitness? What do you do?
I would hold him if I could get Cheekham off waivers and play Cheekham over him for the future until things change. But look, if you haven't got that option, I think I just don't see how you can start him off the bench, really.
Yeah.
How can you?
No, you can't. That's just rough. It's rough how sometimes this fantasy stuff shakes out, because you had pretty much a guaranteed CTW 1 that you got cheap in a draft or off waivers in the first couple of rounds, who then goes down with a bit of a freak injury that finds his way to a wrist injury, who now is essentially worthless. It's a cruel game sometimes, mate. And I'm not an owner, but I can just feel for those owners of Madison.
Yeah, I think for that reason, I'd just be holding and just hoping it turns around. I think you've got to that point where he's worth too much to you and how you value him than trying to trade him away for what he's worth now, because it's just pointless.
What about a buy low, though? Like, who would you be willing, if you didn't own him and someone's really just, because there'll be owners who are fed up now and just want to see him off their team. Would you think he's a good guy to target to trade for to then stash?
Yeah, look, I'm not that interested personally, but yeah, it depends. As with any trade, it depends on price, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. But what's the biggest CTW you'd be willing to give up to acquire Madison?
I just would put a sort of loop around any of those fourth CTWs that people might be interested in. I don't know, Leah. We talked about like a Wanga Blake style, or one of those ones that I'm not that excited about. I could see, filling in with like a Campbell Graham or someone in the meantime, and then just hoping Madison comes good for you from your bench.
Yeah, I guess if that's your price, you're probably worth taking the punt. But I think that owners would probably rather just hold him and see if he actually comes good and gets his spot back. I just don't know. Because who knows? Victor Radley could so easily drop back to the bench and Baptiste could fall off that bench.
He's been good, though, Baptiste. I think he's probably done enough to show that he belongs in the top grade. But I do hear you. It's still possible for sure.
Yeah. Okay. That pretty much wraps us up. In terms of priorities, I think we can both agree that Mansour would be the top pickup of the week.
Go get him. Just get him. Easy one.
Apart from that, I mean, there's a lot of guys here that I guess going to be personal preference. You got Cheekham, who we're pretty excited about. Sean Lane, we've mentioned there's potential there. Taukeiaho, interesting.
Pangai definitely very high on the list if in fact he was dropped during those bench and injury rounds.
Yeah, sorry, I did forget about Tavita. Yeah, of course.
Fair enough to mate, because it is unlikely that he would have been flat dropped, but I'm sure there's some lucky people out there who are about to snap him up.
Yeah, and obviously if you've got if you need a hooker, then Fainu is your one. But you've probably been on him well before.
Go bench stash Fainu, and then the other two. If you need a halfback, I definitely think Brodie Croft or Tamari Martin. You may not even have to waiver them, because if you got two of them on waivers, it's unlikely both will be picked up. But I would stash them. I really would, especially Brodie Croft, because if he does have that spot locked down in a good Melbourne side, he could be a real difference maker on the run home.
Yep. All good. Okay, mate. That wraps us up for another week, and yeah, good luck next week, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, mate. We will do more of an update on our particular ladder for anyone who's interested. next week. And we'll also have to get onto that shoey, mate. We've got to post those videos as well. So just checking, where would we post that to your Twitter account? Is that the plan?
Yeah, I think that'll be the go. Probably the most easiest place to put it.
All right, can't wait. Thanks for listening, guys, and good luck out there this week.
Sounds good. See you.